Welcome to another episode of Resilience Rising with Naturally Cinnamon. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time of the day it is that you're tuning in to the Resilience Rising podcast. Thanks for joining. My name is Naturally Cinnamon, and I'd like for you to please like this episode, love it, share it, rate it, comment, depending on whatever platform you're on. But most important of all, subscribe or follow. I am a therapist, life coach, resilience cultivator, and I am the founder and CEO of Jamila Wellness, LLC, where women go to be well and live beautifully. You can find the company, Jamila Wellness, online at jamilawellness.org, and you can find me at naturallycinnamon.com. So today I'm going to answer one of the questions sent to me by one of my listeners, and it is a man. So although I cater to women, I recognize that I have some Dapper Dans out there listening as well. So I want to thank everyone who tunes in for tuning in. I appreciate you. I truly do. And this young man actually sent in a lot of questions, and these questions are really good questions. So some of them I have to ponder on, and some of them I think I kind of have an answer. So we'll jump into that. First thing I want to do is show you, for those of you who are watching on video, we've got some Hey Gorgeous cups. I have these clear tumblers that you can see in front of you. I have a stemless wine glass, actual wine glasses with stems. We even have some coffee mugs for you coffee drinkers out there, or even if you want to put tea in those mugs as well. But they say on them, Hey Gorgeous, and we're blowing you a big, fat, beautiful kiss. So buy one for yourself, get them while they're here because supplies are limited. So go on jamilawellness.org and click on the Be Well store, and you'll be able to find it there. You can also go on naturallycinnamon.com and click shop and go shopping at the Resilience Rising collection. So there you go. This episode is brought to you by Hey Gorgeous. So the question that he asked is, what do you consider to be the number one killer of dreams and goals? That is a fabulous question. What do I consider to be the number one killer of dreams and goals? Now, I will say that I don't think that there's only one thing, and I think he probably would agree with me that there's not only one thing that can kill dreams and goals, but that there can be a combination of things. We can go into your perspective on life, whether you have a negative mindset or positive mindset, which was a previous podcast episode called I Changed My Mind. You can check that out. I don't remember what episode it is. I think it was probably somewhere around episode 5, I think it is. But it's called I Changed My Mind. So if you want to look at moving your different mindsets, if you have a negative mindset and you think maybe that's what's, killing my hopes and dreams, go check that podcast episode out and listen to that for a minute and give me some feedback. But this young man did send this question in by way of Instagram. He sent it on Instagram. And if you want to find me on Instagram, I'm on there under Resilience Rising Podcast. So you can find me on Instagram at Resilience Rising Podcast. And you can send things in there if you're on Instagram, or if you'd like to email, you can do so by sending it to cinnamon@jamilawellness.org. So I'm going to talk about something that I have written about before that I think is a very, very major factor in keeping us stagnant and preventing us from moving forward. And this particular thing has so many other things attached to it that I'd like to just focus on this one thing. And that one thing is fear. Yes, fear. And I don't mean like being afraid of the dark type fear. I mean like a true intense worry, like negative mindsets, worrying a lot, being afraid to try something new because you've already pointed out all the things that could possibly go wrong. Just fear keeps us stagnant often. So I want to talk about fear for a little bit today. So I guess if I had to choose something to answer the question of the number one killer of dreams and goals, I would say fear. I would absolutely say fear. And so I believe that fear influences us in ways that we just, don't take into account and don't take advantage of. But here's something that I share with some of my clients when they start talking to me about things that are fearful, things that they're afraid of, or things that they are fearful of. And we put it into, an acronym. Acronyms are easy to remember, especially if you can make them into words. If a short word can mean something, then it's easier to remember. So when they start talking about their fear, or even when I start thinking to myself about something I'm afraid of, I think about that fear and I ask myself, does it rip? Does it rip? And I may be dating myself, but I like this song, Let It Whip. It's from back in the day. Just let it whip. So does it rip? Yeah. When you think of your fears, does it rip? R.I.P. rip, or even R.R.I.P. for if you want to take it to that level. And the first R, or RR, if you want to add a second R, means ask yourself these questions. First question, this fear that I have, or this fear that I'm thinking of right now, is it real? Is it real? Like this thing I'm afraid of, is it actually a real possibility? Is this a genuine fear that I have? And is it relevant to you? Is it your fear? Or is it something that you maybe picked up from somewhere else or from someone else? Is it real to you? Is it relevant to you? The thing that you're afraid of doing, or the thing that you're afraid of happening, or even the thing that you're afraid of having, or the thing that you're afraid of losing, is that a real and relevant fear to you? Or did you adopt someone else's fear or fears as yours? Let's think about that. A lot of women have developed this fear of a long life, depending on what stage of life you are. You may have a fear of not getting married, or a fear of not having children, or a fear of not landing that great job, or a fear of not being superwoman, being able to juggle all things and be great at everything. You may have this fear of losing a friend, or this fear of being dumped as a friend. I don't know, whatever the fear may be. I have a fear that I'm not going to get this job, so I'm not even going to apply for it. I have a fear that I'm not going to be able to pay for this education, so I'm not even going to enroll in that education course. It's a fear. Is it your fear? Is it real to you? Is it relevant to you? Or is that someone else's fear that you have now adopted as your own? Did something happen to someone else based on their decisions in their life that is causing you to be paralyzed in any decisions that you want to make in your life? Is it a real and relevant fear to you? I know someone who at one point in life wanted to go back to college and had convinced themselves that in no way, shape, or form was it going to work, because they had a friend that had to pay back student loans and was not able to do so. So they had convinced themselves, well, that's going to happen to me too, so I'm just never going to go back to school. That's not your fear. That's their story. That's not your story. And it doesn't have to be your story. And it probably wasn't ever going to be your story. That's their story. So that particular fear wasn't even real or relevant to you. That was theirs. There are people who, I used to think that there was something wrong with me if I wasn't married by a certain age. Well, that was because other people were putting that on me as like, girl, you got to be married by so-and-so. You better go ahead and lock that man in, and turn around and find out that dude was not willing to be a husband to me at that time in life. What if I would have gone on and been like, oh my gosh, if I don't lock him down now, if we don't go ahead and get married now, it's never going to happen for me. And we both would have been miserable. That wasn't my fear. That was their fear that I wouldn't get married someday. That was their fear. It wasn't real and relevant to me. So be careful not to adopt someone else's fears as your own and then act out that fear. So when you ask this question about this particular fear that you may be having, or this apprehension that you may be having, does it rip? Is it real or relevant to you? or is it someone else's fear? Now, the I is it important? Is it important? If, let's say, worst case scenario, that particular thing that you were afraid of happening actually happens, is it the end of the world? Will the world actually cease turning if that particular thing were to happen? Would life cease to exist? Would everyone just drop dead? Like the end of the world has happened because that particular thing did not exist. I didn't get the loan that I was going for. I didn't get approved for the mortgage for that house that I was going for. The world continued to turn. I continued to breathe and I'm still alive. What's more important? That I didn't get the house that I wanted when I wanted it, or that I'm still alive and breathing and I'm healthy and I'm okay and I'm still able to go to work and try something else another day and maybe go to a first-time home buyers program, or maybe go to a credit repair company, or try something else. I think what's most important is I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. I'm still breathing. I'm still here. That's a little more important than my fear, the thing that I'm afraid of happening actually coming true. I think we need to weigh what's important. I'm going to apply for this job because I hate the job that I have right now. I'm sick of it. But what if they tell me no? Did they tell you no? like the guy in the movie said, but did you die? We may feel emotionally like we're about to die by receiving that rejection. Remember, you can listen to the last podcast episode, episode 9, when we're talking about the flip side of rejection. Today we're talking about fear. But is it important? Is that important that they told you no? Maybe not. But you have to ask yourself that question. This fear that I have, if it were to come true, how important is it, and where does it weigh in the importance of other things? We have to ask ourselves those questions. Does it rip? Is it real or relevant to you? Is it actually and truly important? And number 3, RIP, does it rip? Is it present? Is it a present fear? Is it something that may occur right now and something that may affect me right now, as opposed to a fear I've had in the past or a fear I have about the future? Is this something happening right now? Something that could affect me right now? Where I sit, where I stand, where I live, where I work. Is this something that could occur right now? A lot of times especially when it comes to those of us who worry, because I'm a person that worries, especially when it comes to those of us that worry is more of a future fear. We're worried about what could happen, what might happen, and because we don't know what's gonna happen. We get all in a tizzy about what could possibly happen, which then goes back to saying, is it real? Because it's a possibility. Is it real? Did that really happen? See, these are the 3 things that I try to work through my clients with when we start talking about things that get us tripped up in a level of fear, in the topic and the conversation of fear. Are those things real or relevant to you? Is it important, and is it present? If it is. Now let's say, because that doesn't mean that all fears are false. They're all in our head. And, I've heard lots of acronyms about fear, false evidence appearing real, and things. I've seen and read a lot of acronyms about fear. But let's just say that fear is real. It is relevant to you. Let's say it is important and it is present. Like that thing is happening right now. This fear is happening. I'm feeling fear because of what is currently going on that's really important and real to me right now. There's this really interesting thing that I learned about fear maybe close to a year ago, something like that. And I put it in a blog, and I want to read this blog for you. And the name of the blog is, and you can find it online at jamilawellness.org/blog. You can find it online. It's called The Fear Phenomenon. Yeah, the fear phenomenon. And I know those two words don't even sound like they can go together. It's like fear is so negative and a phenomenon is something that's supposed to be awesome. So how could that even possibly go together? Just hang with me and I'm going to read this to you. The Fear Phenomenon by Cinnamon Key. That's me. Fear can be defined as a distressing emotion aroused by impending danger, evil, pain, etc., whether the threat is real or imagined. Fear can be paralyzing for many. There are so many listed fears and phobias, but one of the main two that I run into among friends and clients is the fear of failure or the fear of rejection. Now, phenomenon can be defined as something that is impressive or extraordinary or a wonder. Usually, a phenomenon is associated with something that's rare and or shocking, maybe even beyond our understanding. So how can fear be impressive, right? Stay with me. Fear is both comfortable and uncomfortable simultaneously. It is both immobilizing and motivating simultaneously. It's even both miserable and blissful simultaneously. How is this at all possible? How can it be both at the same time? Don't we have to choose one or the other? Well, here's a story. You know I like my stories, right? A mother and her toddler were in a waiting room. The receptionist noticed that the toddler was antsy and quite bored. So the kind receptionist provided the toddler with a couple of blank sheets of paper from her printer, along with a pencil. After the toddler covered almost every blank space on the papers with several pencil markings, he ran back to the receptionist for more paper. His mother interrupted him and redirected him back to the paper. Thinking there was nothing left to do, the toddler began to sulk and tears came to his eyes. Poor baby. The mother politely said something like, "All you have to do is go to the other side." She flipped the papers over to the blank sides and the toddler was elated. That is the phenomenon of fear. That is what the phenomenon of fear is. It's comfortable because we stay where we are due to the fear of something not turning out the way we hoped or intended. But it's also uncomfortable because we don't want to stay where we are. Whether the threat is real or imagined, remember? Afraid of rejection? Well, what if what or who rejected you was divine intervention, shielding you from something undesirable down the road? Something to think about. What if who or what rejected you was divine intervention, shielding you from something undesirable down the road? Have you ever gotten in line for a roller coaster that you've never been on? Fear. You hear the screams of others while they're riding. Maybe an occasional person gets sick. Anxiety and anticipation build as you get closer. You're considering backing out. Fear. When you are at the front of the line, you see the previous riders breathing heavily and repeating, "Oh my God, oh my God." Then you climb aboard, making sure that you are securely fastened. Fear. And off it goes. And it's so much fun. When you finish the ride and calm down, you're ready to go again. Where's that fear? Where in the world did that fear go? Well, it didn't just disappear. You're just on the other side of it. The phenomenon is that when it comes to fear, if it is real, relevant, important, and present to you, when it comes to that fear, to get from one thought or emotion to another, just go to the other side. How phenomenal is that? So the number one killer of hopes and dreams can also be our number one motivator of those same hopes and dreams? Yeah, it can when you flip it to the other side. The number one immobilizing fear, the number one thing that immobilizes me and makes me stagnant and keeps me in this space and makes me not even want to go anywhere near this thing that I'm so fearful of, can also push me towards it. Yeah, when you go to the other side. The same thing that's making me comfortable to stay where I am because I'm afraid of what's on the uncomfortable side. I don't know what it is over there. It's the same thing. Yes, it's the same thing when you flip it over. The same thing that makes me miserable is the same thing that can make me blissful. Yes, that's the phenomenon when you flip it to the other side. So the first thing I want people to do is to measure this thing that you're so fearful of, the thing that you're afraid of happening, the thing that you're nervous or scared of doing. Measure that thing. Is it real? Is it relevant? Is it important? Is it present? If it's not all of those things, then maybe that's not something that you should allow to stop you and hold you stagnant. But even if it is present, it can be a phenomenal thing if you allow it to be. Fear can be phenomenal if you just flip that thing to the other side. And the thing that is immobilizing, the thing that is uncomfortable, the thing that is comfortable, the thing that is immobilizing, the thing that will keep you where you are, you flip it over, all of a sudden it may be uncomfortable, but it's also motivating at the same time. That's the phenomenon of fear. Even if that fear is real, there's a phenomenal deal. There's a phenomenal side of it when you flip it over. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Do not forget to go online to jamilawellness.org/store and order your limited supply of Hey Gorgeous drinkware. Like I said, we've got a couple of Yeti mugs, the insulated travel mugs. We have insulated tumblers with straws as well. We have coffee mugs, stemless wine glasses, and wine glasses with the stems for us dainty ladies that like to have a glass weekly or so. Thank you for joining me. Please be sure to leave a comment either here on this platform, leave a rating, share this podcast with somebody who you think would enjoy it or needs to hear it. I said rate it already, comment, and send in your topics to jamilawellness.org. And you can also find me through my social media sites. On Instagram, we have an Instagram now, Resilience Rising Podcast. You can look us up there, but you can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook under Naturally Sin. So be sure to like this podcast, love it, share it, rate it, comment. Most important, do subscribe and do follow this podcast. I am Naturally Cinnamon. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Thanks for tuning in to Resilience Rising with Naturally Cinnamon. Life has a way of tossing unexpected trials and circumstances our way. We can't stop them, but we can better handle them by raising our resilience. Creative Director Jeremy Key for J Key Collective. Music by AJ Miles.